try to use some.
Put this one out, Brandon, right here. Captain Kip Mamano, Rochester Sport Fishing, fishing beautiful Lake Ontario. We are fishing mostly down deep right now as the sun is high in the sky. Right now, today, we're looking at really green water, high nutrient load, tons of food for the vast numbers of sawbellies, smelt, gizzard shad, Niagara minnows that are here feeding on the zooplankton and phytoplankton. Any water that's got any kind of color in it, as opposed to being clear, has high nutrients in it, and that's where you want to fish. Captain Brandon White here, he's going to explain a little bit about our spread and what we're doing and what we're using to get these fish to come into our spread and trigger a bite.
As you see in the back of the boat, we have these mechanisms here which are called electric downriggers. You want our spread in a V, with the tip of the V being your deepest rods and the outside of your V being your highest rods. These downriggers, electric downriggers, have weighted balls on them. Anywhere from 8 to 15 is your typical downrigger weight. The deeper you want to go, the heavier ball you want to use. So right now we're fishing 185 feet of water. We have these downriggers approximately 120 to 140 feet down, so obviously you want the heaviest ball that you can. You typically will run a spoon or what's called a flash or fly on these, because there's very little resistance to the clip that holds your line to the ball. When a fish hits your lure, it pulls it off of that clip, and then it's just you and the fish fighting. The ball just sits there until you bring it back into the boat, completely detached from where you're fishing. To give you an idea of what a flash or fly is, and we'll kind of go in a couple different ways of how you run these. That's just a typical terminology here on Lake Ontario, but a fly is basically got its concept from people fishing rivers with fly rods, where it's just a hook with a hand tied. Back in the day was fur or tails off of birds, whereas now they use different cosmetics such as different types of plastic, silicone, tinsel. Specifically here we're using the Yo-Zuri squid baits, which is that silicone material. So basically what you do is you get a pre-tied, what we call a tournament rig here, leader. These come in either just a treble hook at the back or a tournament style, what we call them, is with a single hook in the front. It just increases your hookup ratio. You have anywhere from a 18 to 32 inch leader. The shorter the leader, the quicker it's going to spin. The longer the leader, the slower it's going to spin. You take your leader here and you attach it to the back of what's called a flasher or a rotator. Has these diagonal cuts in it. This helps it spin in the water like this, so it's creating a spinning effect as it goes through the water. This rotator right here is creating the image of a school of bait fish, and then behind it you have the one lagging behind bait fish that the fish want to key in on, the weakest link of the group, for instance. So what we would do on here is attach a 6-foot leader. This is where we use our Yo-Zuri top knot, anywhere from 20 to 30 pounds. We use a 6-foot leader with a snap swivel on each end. One snap swivel attaches to your rotator here. The other attaches to the dipsy that we talked about previously on the back here. This attaches to your main line. This planes in the water, both down and out. You have the options here to move the weight further out or further in, and depending on the side that you pick is the side that it will plane out to. So these all come with a dive chart, and based on the setting that you have it on and the speed that you're trolling, it'll tell you how deep it will go. So for instance, just to throw a number out there, if your line counter says 100 feet out, the Dipsy Diver chart might tell you that you are 50 feet down at 2.5 miles an hour, which is the typical speed that we troll at. When a fish hits, it releases the Dipsy Diver, and this no longer is planing in the water, so then it's just you and the fish. So again, Inside we have the Downriggers, which go straight down. When they release, it's just you and the fish. Typically we use monofilament or the Yo-Zuri hybrid copolymer. If we're using mono, then we use a 20-pound leader on that. If it's the fall of the year, when the fish are bigger and their mouths have hardened to begin to spawn, then we bump up to a 30-pound. So as we go out, obviously we want to widen our spread. We don't want all our rods on top of each other. So we have what we call planer boards. So the planer boards get the line away from the boat, widen your spread, and going back to that V I talked about, they're at the top and most outside of the V. You can see here that orange device out there. It looks like a sled, planes through the water, it floats, and it's attached to the boat. We have a mechanism that brings the line in and out, so the farther we want to get away from the boat, we just let out more line. So then what you do is you take that line and you slide it right through here, then you take the line from your rod, you attach it here, so that when the fish bites, again like that downrigger, releases from the clip, it's just you and the fish. There's a various amount of weighted lines, and they're all cut into sections. Each section dives the lure a specific amount. So the main types of diving line that we use is lead core, which dives approximately 4 to 5 feet per color, which is a 30-foot section of lead covered by sheath. Every 30 feet will get you down a certain distance, like I said, that 4 or 5 feet. So for instance, if you have 5-color lead core, that rod is specifically set up for that distance in depth. That will get you down 25 feet. 5 colors times the 5 feet per color, that gives you the 25 feet. And then you can add whatever you want. Typically, that's what we run our Yo-Zuri hard baits on. Obviously, you have a bunch of different size lips on all of your crystal minnows. So obviously, the bigger the lip, the more it's going to dive. What you do is you add on the depth that the bait runs naturally to the depth that the line runs. So if I have a 5-color out that goes down 25 feet, and then I add the 3.5-inch crystal minnow on it, then I'm going to add 10 feet to that, so that gets me down 35 feet. When you start wanting to get down even deeper and deeper to these fish that we're going after today that are now, close to 100 foot down, then you have a line called weighted steel or copper, both very similar to each other, and they're thicker than the lead core, but they're obviously heavier. Those are set up in feet sections versus color sections. So for instance, 250 feet of weighted steel will get you down 50 feet alone, and then you can add any device that you want to it. So then again, we can add our hard baits to it, and the bigger the lip, the deeper it'll dive. Some other things to take into consideration is using Yo-Zuri Super Braid. So all these weighted lines that I talked about, yes, they get the bait down to the fish, but you need to then have line to fight the fish with. So all of that lines out, you're going to clip it to your release using the clip, and then you have to have what we call backer. So typically you're using braid because it's very strong, it's very thin, and you can fit a lot of it on a reel, because obviously if you used something of thicker capacity, you're going to need a gigantic reel to get this fish in, and these fish will take you out somewhere between 800 and 1,000 feet when you get a mature king salmon on there, so lots of backer is key. So typically what we'll do is we'll take anywhere from 300 to 400 yards of Yo-Zuri Super Braid, around 30 pounds, and we'll back the reel with that. Then we'll add our weighted line on so that you're fighting the fish on that backer before you even get to the line that's actually in the water. Typically when these fish hit, they're going to scream out a ton of line, they're going to fight you right off the bat, and that's when that backer comes into play. So you can have anywhere from a 50-foot leader with 300 or 400 feet of weighted line, and then the line that they take out. So that's how you can easily get to that 800 or 1,000 feet away from the boat. You're using a very specific technique of bringing your rods back to 12 o'clock, reeling down on the fish, bringing it back. It's a very slow process, but that's what you need to do to get these fish in. You can't just reel the fish. There's too much weight. They have too much power. You're not just going to be able to reel them in like you would, an inland type of fish. All right, so kind of to wrap up here, one of the things I want to really focus on is why we use Yo-Zuri baits. Yo-Zuri is obviously a southern company in Florida, and their gear was typically based for saltwater fish. That's why they're saltwater grade lures. They have saltwater grade hooks and eyelets and split rings. It's obviously going to keep your baits from rusting, but they're of super, super high quality. We run these baits non-stop, and we never lose them, we never damage them, whereas typical of other brands is that these fish are so powerful and they hit with such aggression that they will not hold up to a large amount of fish. So a lot of people won't buy other brands because they know that that lure isn't going to last them very long because of this type of fish that you're actually going after. So I highly recommend checking out the Yo-Zuri Crystal Minnow. They're going to last you. You're not going to break them off. And these baits that we've been using since we started using Yo-Zuri a whole ton of years ago. If you're interested in checking out fishing on the Great Lakes, I suggest you get some of these products that I talked about today. If you want to learn a little bit more, see how it's done, you can check us out at rochestersportfishing.com. We are on the south shore of Lake Ontario in Rochester, New York. And yeah, thanks for tuning in. Again, Captain Brandon White and Captain Kip Mamano of Rochester Sport Fishing Charters.